Hi, and welcome. And real quick, the Podcast Engineering School, the online training program, is starting on April 4th. Go to the website for all the details, podcastengineeringschool.com. That's right, it's going to be online training. Barry, you like online training, right?
Yeah, oh yeah.
I thought so. So check out the website for more information, podcastengineeringschool.com. Barry, are you psyched for Patrick Keller?
Oh, forget it.
Right, dude?
Come on, Barry.
This is going to be great, isn't it?
Yeah, oh yeah.
That's right. It's the Podcast Engineering Show, session number 44. It's time. Let's do it. Ooh.
Can I grunt?
Yes, go. Oh, yes, grunting. We're stealing it from the Profit First podcast, which, by the way, I'm a co-host of that, so it's not really stealing. Anyhow, welcome to the show. I'm trying not to do my radio voice, but I'm excited. I love doing this show. I love talking about the audio engineering side of podcasting. That's what this show is. We don't talk about marketing and listeners and downloads and media hosting and we don't and content. None of that. We talk about the audio engineering side. We want to talk about the sound quality. So I produce podcasts for some big companies and also a lot of business authors. And every week on this show, we bring you the podcasting production techniques on a silver platter. We really talk shop with podcast producers, engineers, and other specialists. I actually have a background in audio engineering in the music business. That's right. In the 90s, I was in New York City. Worked on a bunch of albums, got a bunch of credits. It was fun. And I produced a lot of bands on my own. It was great. And about 5 years ago, I got into podcasting and I realized that most people that are podcasting or podcast producers, they know very little about actual audio engineering fundamentals. So that's what this show is really there for. So many tips and tricks we've given over the years. And of course, Barry's with me. Barry, what is someone going to need to actually sound good? I mean, look, there's a lot of things you might need. Barry, boil it down for us. What is someone going to need to sound really good?
You're going to need a couple of horses or a couple of mules.
Okay. Anything else?
Saws, hammers, nails.
Really? Anything else?
Monkeys, pumas. Yeah.
All right. Well, that's Barry. Thank you, Barry. He's the maintenance guy in my old building. Of course, this whole show is brought to you by Podcast Engineering School. We're starting the school in April. You heard it right before we started this episode. It's going to be awesome. It's just going to be otherworldly, certifying individuals to be podcast engineers and producers so they can either start a business or get a job in the industry. It's amazing. It's an actual industry now, Patrick. People are making money with this.
Hey, I'm digging it.
Right? And also, next week, I'm going to be at Podfest Multimedia Expo. Where are you going to be next week? You should come and join me there. I'm going to be speaking. It's in Orlando, Florida, February 23rd to 25th. Me and a few other guys have this big presidential suite. We're going to have some fun, and we're not going to party. I actually don't party, Patrick. Is that a problem for you?
You know what? I am incredibly boring now, and so I'm cool with that.
I don't drink. I don't smoke. I don't eat meat. Anyway, whatever. Also, April 21st to 22nd, Lexington, Kentucky, the podcasting course. Here's the thing. If you know anyone in the medical field, medical education, and they want to start podcasting, this is like a whole workshop for medical education folks. It's April 21st, 22nd. The URL is the podcasting course. I'm psyched to be one of the keynote speakers there. Speakers/trainers. We're actually going to get into it. So my guest today is Patrick Keller. That's right. He's the host and producer of the Big Seance Podcast. This is almost like a little audio engineering seance. Can we do something like that on the show today, Patrick?
We can try. I don't have a medium on staff or anything, but we can see what we can do.
Can we channel Rupert Neve? I mean, I don't even know if he's still alive. How horrible is that?
I don't even know who that is. Who is that?
Rupert Neve. All right, I'm actually gonna I'm gonna look this up right now. I'm Googling it. Where's the Wikipedia?
Should I be embarrassed?
No. Wait a second. He's still alive.
Oh my gosh.
What
an insult.
Where is it? Yeah. He's born July 31st, 1926. He's still alive. So he's 90.
Well, we could try to do like some telepathic kind of stuff, since he's still alive.
See, we need to do that. Your show, you talk about all like paranormal, life after death, right? All that stuff.
Yeah, I like to think of it as kind of sometimes we bounce back and forth between the niche of paranormal and spiritual sometimes. But a lot of after death, spirit, life after death, spirit communication, ghosts, stuff like that.
Ghosts. There you go.
We call ourselves para-nerds, by the way.
Nice. Yeah, I'm kind of into that stuff. I mean, I'm not into all that stuff. I'm more into the spirituality side, so like meditation, like enlightenment, and the spiritual
I knew we had
yatra.
some nerdiness in common there.
Yeah, well, I do the Mystic Show. That's my podcast about spirituality. So, all right, so let's do the speed round. We're gonna do this. By the way, before we started the episode, when you connected, it's always interesting. I always think I should roll the recorders just as soon as my guest connects, because like the first 5 minutes are just usually hilarious with all and instructive in a lot of ways sometimes. So anyway, you connected and your level was really high, and we toned it down, and we actually set some of the settings over there. So that was pretty cool. So let's do the speed round. Why don't you take us through real quick without too much explanation, because you're going to overview your whole equipment and workflow setup, and then after you give it to us real quick, then we're going to actually take the rest of the episode and step through it and really talk about it.
Okay, well, if I may, just a little behind the scenes, I have to tell people that in those 5 minutes, I can't believe how quickly, you fixed some clear mistakes that I was doing, and it was like you were sitting here right with me. It was nice. Awesome. It was really cool. So I'm excited to hear what it sounds like.
It sounds good.
Okay, so, I guess I'll start with the equipment. So I have the Behringer Q802 USB preamp thingamajig. And then I have the very awesome DBX 286S, which I found out that I really didn't know a lot about before I connected with Chris today. I use it very little. I mainly use it for a gate, and here's why I've always used it for a gate, because I am super bugged by my inhales. A lot of people are bugged by their exhales.
Oh.
I've never smoked a day in my life, but I have like smoker inhales. And it's always bugged me. And I used to go through and spend hours taking all of them out. And so the gate kind of solved that for me. I had the Heil PR40. Before that, I actually used an MXL 990 for, I can't remember how many months I used that. And then before that, I used the Snowball for a few episodes. My DAW is Audacity, and Auphonic is what I process most. I don't process my whole episode at the end, but I process the different pieces and the different parts of my episode through Auphonic, and then put it back.
Nice.
I use a Zoom H5 for like on location stuff, but I haven't yet figured out how to do the whole record externally, and I've wanted to do that for a while now, just so I can get a better quality sound on my end when I'm on Skype with guests. But I've got all that stuff, just need to figure out how to do it.
Okay, what do you mean record externally?
I guess mix minus, I guess, is technically what it is. For a while I thought I was hooked up with as a mix minus, and apparently I'm not. I've tried to watch a few tutorials. Ray Ortega has great tutorials, and like some Rob Walsh things, and I just haven't been able to make it work. So I record just on my iMac, which makes me nervous, because I don't have a backup. And then I had to use that Skype recording of my voice, which sounds a lot better if I'm recording right directly in Audacity. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I'm a little confused. So when you're recording, so your show, you bring in people through Skype, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you bring in someone through Skype. How are you recording their voice? Where are you recording it?
I'm recording their voice with the Ecamm call recorder for the iMac, but that's where my voice is coming from as well. So if Skype gets wonky, it's also making my voice wonky. As, if I were to be recording externally, I'm assuming it would have a better quality of my voice. I can usually tell a difference in my episodes when I have like the intro and different parts where it's just me recording solo in Audacity. It has a better quality than all of a sudden when I ship over to my guest interview portion. Sometimes my voice on that interview is less quality because I'm grabbing that audio from Skype.
That's so weird. Like Ecamm, that might be some settings in the Ecamm call recorder. Yeah, because I always I have never used Ecamm, but I always thought it took the host who's local, that's you, it took your voice from local and recorded your direct signal locally, and on the other side recorded the Skype person through Skype, obviously. So I mean, I have some homework to do. It might be that it's doing that, but I do tell a difference often. Yeah, so that's the thing. Like if you're recording yourself locally, then it shouldn't bother whether, if Skype glitches or whatever happens with Skype, it shouldn't matter. Your voice should literally always sound the same. Mm-hmm. So that's an interesting thing you can look into. I'm not, like I said, I don't know Ecamm. Okay, so you record the voices, then what do you do?
So I record my interviews first, and sometimes I'm able to batch them, and then later on I script my intro and sometimes guest information, and I have other little bits and pieces of my show like listener feedback and sometimes like news type stuff, and then I will put those. Like I said, I process in Auphonic the tracks to my interviews separately. I don't know why, and I don't know if that's silly, but if I go through and process my guest's track individually and then my track individually, I tend to have better results that way, and then I just put them back together, throw them back into Audacity, and then do my major editing. I edit a lot more than I hear other people doing, and it's not that I'm necessarily a pro at it. I'm just really super picky, and so I feel like I have to really control everything that goes through before people listen to it. So sometimes I will listen to my interviews, a 45-minute interview like 3 times, I guess, by the time I'm done with it. And, I don't take out all the ums and things like that, but I am kind of picky, I guess. And then I'll put, I make a teaser for all of my episodes where I take like usually a minute or less, some of the cool, teaser like parts, put some music behind it and some effects, throw that at the beginning, and then my intro and outro. And then usually I have about an hour show by the time I do that. But yeah, all those other little pieces, the intro and the music, and that's all been processed individually through Auphonic. And so I'm assuming that's just like running your whole show through.
Yeah. And then you assemble it in Audacity.
Yes. Then so I export it as a wave and put it into iTunes, convert it to MP3 there and do my ID3 tags and upload to Libsyn. And I tend to spend a lot of time on show notes and timestamps and things like that.
I hear you. Cool. Well, that's a good overview. And
yay.
And do you, well, I think we talked about it earlier. Sometimes you have more than one person on Skype, right?
Usually not, but I have had the most I've had 2 people on Skype, which, is not, it's never been horrible, but, not ideal. Yeah. But I've never had more than 2. And
then both of their voices are on one track through the Ecamm call recorder. Yeah.
Correct.
Okay, so let's do this. The Heil PR40. We're going to step back through everything and just have a nice chat about it. So first of all, you started with a snowball. Yeah, baby.
I did.
Barry, you like snowballs?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, wait. Sorry. Barry, did you hear me? I'll say it better. Barry, do you like snowballs?
No way. You crazy?
Okay, that's what I thought.
Especially when you're recording in a loft with no walls.
Hey,
that made it worse.
Hey, Barry, when you hear someone's voice through a snowball, what does it make you feel?
There's no activity, no giggle, no nothing.
All right. So then you upgraded to the MXL 990, which we talked about a few episodes ago. That's a large diaphragm condenser microphone.
Yeah. And so it really wasn't good for that, smoker's inhale breath that we were talking about. But I actually think I like the sound of when my voice is picked up. I actually liked it a little better. It had, some kind of current hum that was at a completely different location that I lived at the time. But it had a hum underneath it constantly. And so that's why I ended up trying the PR40, which I've had for, probably a year and a half now. And I'm good with it.
Yeah. Yeah. The PR40 is a solid mic. And yeah, any large diaphragm condenser for a podcaster is going to be rough. It's going to pick up all kinds of room noise. It's going to, but it'll sound better. Like if you were in a quiet studio and you used the PR40 and the MXL 990 and then listened back to both, you would almost definitely, wait, hold on. What?
What?
Hold on. What the F? No, this thing just pop up in cast. It said time's up. You've run out of recording time on your cast account. This recording session will automatically stop in 60 seconds. Are you kidding me? So here's what I was saying. Let's get back on track here. I was saying that if you had a quiet studio space and you tested your Heil PR40 next to your MXL 990, you would definitely think that the MXL 990 sounded better, I would assume, because condenser mics are just so much more articulate. It's like almost like high definition. It sounds like high definition compared to a dynamic mic, which a Heil PR40 is dynamic. But the thing is, condensers pick up everything, all kinds of background noise. So that's why the PR40 is good. That's why these other dynamic mics are good. I'm using an RE20. I used to use a Shure SM7B, and of course the exalted ATR 2100 that everyone uses. Anyway, and the PR40, the other reason the PR40 is good is that it has a very tight cardioid pattern as well. So it rejects a lot of noise from the side and from the back.
If I think about it, that 990 is probably why I have such a habit of editing so much, because I was having to edit so much out, before I presented the thing.
That's interesting. So yeah, the PR40, and PR40 is nice on your voice too. Some people, it makes them a little too much low end, and it some people's like the PR40 is a pretty smooth mic. It's nice and smooth somehow.
Well,
I don't know.
thank you.
That's how I feel it. But anyway, all right. So then now you're using a PR40 and you're going. Oh, first of all, your studio space or wherever you are do you have any soundproofing up? Is it a live kind of a room?
I do. The only thing is, I know you're supposed to have plenty of soundproofing in front of you. Most of my soundproofing is behind me. I'm in the third bedroom, basically. My parlor, we like to call it, my guests. And so basically, whenever I'm on video and things, it looks super cool and looks pro, but I'm not sure it helps all that much because it's mostly behind me.
No, it does. It
does? Okay.
Well, yeah, because look, think about it. If your foam, I do the same thing. Right now I have two huge big things of foam like leaning up against the wall behind me. Mm-hmm. Here's the deal. The foam is behind me. My microphone is in front of me, but my microphone is pointing toward the foam, right? Mm-hmm. So what happens is if someone stands in the middle of the room and faces me and they say, hello, the sound of their voice is going to
I see what you're saying.
Come to me. It's going to hit the back of my microphone, so it's going to be rejected by the mic, right? Mm-hmm. Then the sound is going to go past me. It's going to hit the foam behind me and mostly get absorbed. So very little of that sound is going to reflect off the wall and come back into my mic. So behind you is actually where it's supposed to be.
Oh, okay. Well, cool. I do have, extra foam blocks that I've considered putting up kind of on the walls facing, the opposite side of the room.
Yeah.
I just haven't done that yet. So I'm sure that would still be a benefit, right?
It is. And when I say having it behind you is correct, like I don't mean like you can have foam all around the whole room if you want. Mm-hmm. I'm just saying that having some foam behind you is good because
good, because I wondered, if it was just a waste. But again, it looks cool. It looks cool, man.
No, it makes a big difference. It really does. It really makes a big difference. I mean, that's one of the, if you hear what Daniel J. Lewis says, the most annoying sound to him in podcasting is when it sounds like the person is in this big room with hardwood floors where the sound's bouncing all around. Mm-hmm. He says that's worse than like Skype glitching and stuff. Like that's the worst of the worst for him is reverb. And I kind of agree because it's weird. It makes it hard to understand what the person's saying.
So Daniel J. Lewis is not chilling out listening to my early back catalog. Is basically what you're saying.
Oh, all right. Well, hey, look, we all start that way. Even last week when I was talking to Jason DeFilippo about that too. Same thing. Like a lot of the podcasts we start, the first ones we start, they don't sound that great. But you go through a learning curve and that you learn. Mm-hmm. And then of course you upgrade your equipment. And it happens in stages. It doesn't happen all at once. Like no one decides, hey, I'm going to start podcasting and goes out and spends $8,000 on the best equipment, sets it up, and literally episode 1, they sound like, a radio god. It just doesn't happen.
Yeah, well, in my case, you find out that it ends up becoming a passion, and you really nerd out on it. And when you have only 4-legged furry children, you don't have, for real children, you can splurge on things,
Totally. Yeah, and also we talked last week, when you buy good equipment, it lasts forever. If you take care of it. Mm-hmm. Literally lasts forever. That Heil PR40 lasts forever. Now, I want to move on to your Behringer mixer because that might not last forever.
Great.
Yeah. No. That's it. Look, it's a Behringer Q802. It's a USB mixer, and I've never owned a USB mixer, so it's the same. It's the same as having a mixer going into an audio interface and then going into the computer USB. It's the same thing. It's just all in one. It's a mixer and an audio interface in one. Is basically what it is. So it's not anything strange or kooky. That's all it is. It's very straightforward. Mm-hmm. So you're using that and it works for you. You have 2 mic inputs. And do you ever record more than one person in the room where you are?
I never have. It's only been me. So if that ever happens, I'll be hooking up with you for sure.
Well, your Behringer's got another mic input. You just plug another mic in. Boom.
Right.
That's the beauty of it.
Yeah. And I have, ATR 2100s here, so I could bust a couple of those out.
There you go.
One, since I only have 2 inputs.
Oh, okay. So what about your mixer? Was it hard to get to learn your mixer? Was it easy to set up and get started with?
Well, I'm kind of, I've learned more about mixers and things since becoming a podcaster. I've been a music teacher for 15 years, but I've never really, I've not been one of those, rock band geeks who knows about all that stuff. So I've always been afraid of the knobs and things. And I do, even today, tend to be like, I don't touch my knobs. A ghost could come in here and, tweak everything and I would lose my mind because I'd have to. That's why we were talking earlier. I take pictures every time I change. If I do ever change something, I take pictures so that I can freak out and put it back to where it was before, because I don't always understand what everything does. But,
right.
Like I said, watching some tutorials has helped me, and, having a new sound system at my school and having to figure that out has helped me. But I'm kind of one of those obsessive compulsive people that once I get it going and I think I sound pretty good, I don't change it out of fear of messing it up.
I hear you. That's that's the way you got to do it. Because when you're ready to do a podcast, you can't go in there and fight with your equipment for 3.5 hours beforehand.
Right.
You need to go in and say, okay, let's do this. So, all right, the Behringer Mixer, and here's the thing. So the Behringer Mixer, you're plugging your PR40. Well, first of all, your PR40 is going to the DBX286S through that mic pre. So let's talk about that. The DBX286S, this is a very, actually kind of common among podcasters, although it is a big step up in terms of sound quality because it has a mic pre, it has a compressor, it has an expander. It's basically what they call a channel strip. And a channel strip, the reason they call it a channel strip is because in the old consoles, each channel, in the old consoles, it would be a big channel, like, 2.5, 3 feet long. And in it, you'd have the mic pre, you'd have your expander and gate, you'd have your compressor, you'd have your EQ, you'd have all your aux sends, you'd have all your bus sends, everything. You'd have it in one channel. So every instrument got to have its own compressor and every instrument got to have everything by itself. So that's what a channel strip is, which is kind of like the one I use, like the DBX286S, which you have is really good. It's a good upgrade. The one I use is a Neve Portico 2, which is like, it's like if you ever, hit the lottery and you want to buy something stupid, awesome, that's it. But I did it because, look, I'm an audio engineer and that's like, you need one. I need one. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so the DBX is really cool because the mic pre is much higher quality than a mixer, typically, than a podcaster's mixer, certainly. And then you come out of the DBX into your Behringer mixer, into channel 1, and from there it goes into your computer, and and then you're recording it in eCam with your Skype guest as well.
Correct.
Now, do you ever, when you record just yourself speaking without a Skype interview guest, how do you record that?
Just write directly into Audacity.
Right. Okay, good. Mm-hmm. So that's good. Now, here's the thing. You mentioned you have a Zoom H5 and that you kind of use it on location from time to time, right? Mm-hmm. So and you said that you wanted to record, almost have a backup recording. Instead of just using eCam to record your interviews, you'd like to have a backup recording.
Yes.
Here's all you need to do. You have the Zoom H5. It's there. You just need, so from your mixer, from your Behringer mixer, one of the outputs, whether it's tape out or main mix out, or you can figure out which output to take, but just take the output from the mixer, and you need to buy cables for this. Just come right out of the mixer and go right into the H5. Boom.
Well, now that you helped me out, back to behind the scenes, I was doing something very wrong on the Behringer, and you helped me fix that. Maybe that was the initial problem that I had. Having that gain up, I had my gain up on both of my pieces of equipment, and maybe that's why trying to record externally went horribly wrong. So now I'll have to try it again.
Okay,
because I
good.
have all the cords.
Yeah, that's perfect. Now you can try it again. And by the way, so just to elucidate the mistake you were making more, just so our listeners can understand, you're going through your DBX286, which has a mic pre. Then you were going into your mixer, into channel 1, which also has a mic pre, and you had that up as well. So basically you had 2 mic pre's going, which were both probably about half up. And that's why when you would speak louder, I heard the crunchiness and the distortion of a mic pre. So here's the thing. With each microphone, you only need 1 mic pre, right? So in your case, you're going through the DBX286. That's your mic pre. Wherever else you send the signal, always turn any mic pre or any gain knob. You can just turn it down all the way because you only want to use 1 mic pre, and every other mic pre. Well, really, it's only one you would go through. If you go into a mixer, there's a mic pre there. I do the same thing. I come out of my Neve Portico 2 and go into my mixer. And on the mixer itself, I have the mic pre turned all the way down to the left because I don't want to add any gain from the mixer. I want to add the gain from the higher quality mic preamp, which for you is the 286. So that's a good...
I'm super excited and pumped that you helped me fix that because it's been, like I said, 1.5 years that I've been trying to make it work with both preamps.
And now here's the thing. If you set up your Zoom H5, if you come off out of your mixer into the Zoom H5, I don't know how this would work, but because again, I don't have a USB mixer and I'm not sure of the actual routing, but you may be able to take your signal out on the left and go into so on the Zoom H5, you may be able to record your voice on the left and your guest's voice on the right.
I think that was the original plan. So I'd have to kind of look back and see how to go about doing that. But that was the plan from the beginning. Yeah. And I think I remember I had to have, I'm forgetting what it is. I had to have one of those little round white things with I forget who recommends that. What is that called? Anyway, I'm sorry. You'll probably have to cut that. That'll sound super dorky. But I've got a couple pieces of things that was recommended, and I just, wasn't smart enough at the time to figure out how to put it all together.
Okay, yeah, so do that, because then if you can take your signal out of the board, record it on the left side on the Zoom H5, and then your Skype guests on the right side, that'll solve the eCam thing, the eCam issues. I mean, eCam is okay, but if you can record both signals individually on your Zoom H5, that'll be not only higher quality, or at least the same, but it'll definitely record you locally. So your voice will always be crystal clear, and the guest voice is always what it is. So you won't, I don't know. I'm a hardware guy, right? I'm an old school guy I want equipment in front of me. I want a mixer. So for instance, in my studio, my mixer is the main focal point of my studio, which it is for every studio. The mixer is where you mix everything and route everything, right? I like to do it hardware because then I know everything I know. I can do anything. I literally can do anything. I can route anything anywhere and no problem. When you do it inside a computer, that's when problems start. I mean, problems can start. So anyway, we just have to be careful of that.
Well, and so now I could use that eCam as my backup rather than the external,
Sure.
recording as the backup, right?
Yeah, totally.
Awesome. That I will sleep easier if I can figure out how to do that.
Yeah, I think, that's a good project, a good learning project for you, for sure. So yeah, whatever cables you got, just try it out. It might, look, put on some nice music in the background, make a nice cup of tea, and play around with it for an hour and a half. I mean,
as soon as we're done with this interview.
There you go. All right, so now you record everything, and I like what you said. You put each voice individually through Auphonic, and yes, that is the right way to do it, in my opinion.
Good.
Well, and even fundamentally, technically speaking, that's the right way to do it. Yeah, because then you're cleaning up each one, you're leveling each one. It's really nice. The question for you though is, do you process the individual voices? Like a lot of times, someone on Skype, like Skype takes out some of the high frequencies, so it kind of makes it duller, and sometimes it has a lot of low frequencies in it. So especially with Skype, I end up having to EQ it. Do you do any EQ or compression of the voices you record?
A long time ago, I guess I used to compress some things in Audacity. I haven't done that in a long time, especially since Auphonic. Any other EQ, when people talk about EQ, my eyes tend to cross, and I start dreaming about chocolate and stuff like that because I don't get it.
Okay.
So probably no. But I, every now and then when there's something, if the connection just wasn't as good as you'd like and there, pieces of the guest's audio, sometimes I'll compress things like that, or try some of the different effects, low cut, high cut, things like that. Now, is that EQ? Is that what I'm doing?
Yeah. Low cut and high cut is EQ. That's the low frequency roll off and the high frequency roll off. And
so I guess I do that, but it's typically just for like short little pieces of the interview, if it's like too low or whatever. And I just kind of experiment with that. I don't really have a lot of expertise on it.
Yeah, well, the filters, the low frequency roll off and the high frequency roll off, those are called filters, EQ filters. Those are very handy. So for instance, if there's a Skype caller who has a lot of bass in their voice, you can roll off the low end quite a bit. And that it makes it clearer, because if there's too much low end, it becomes muddy. And so in the mid range and the high mids, like let's say 2 and 3K, or let's say 1 to 4 kilohertz, 1 to 4K, right in there. Well, 1K is more your mid range, but 3 or 4K, that's your presence. That's your intelligibility. For instance, let me do this experiment. On my mixer, I'm gonna turn down Like I'm going to find 4K and I'm going to turn it down all the way and see what happens to my voice when I remove 3 or 4 kilohertz. All right, let me, I got to go look and do it. Hold on. Okay, I'm back. All right. How do I sound, Patrick?
It sounds, gosh, how do I describe it? I don't know.
Here, let me talk more. How does it sound? Because what I did is I took 4K in the mid-range and I turned down 4 kilohertz.
It's kind of creepy. It kind of sounds like you're standing behind me.
Interesting. All right, so now, dude, that's weird. But all right. All right, but now I'm going to turn the knob up. I'm going to add back all the 4K, and you can hear my voice is now. Don't I sound much clearer now?
It was fuzzy before.
Don't I sound crystal clear right now?
Crystal.
Well, because that's 4K. So if there was too much bass, that's what happens. Because everything's a balance. Like if you add more bass, then like if you add more low end, then in terms of in relative terms, there's less of 3 or 4K, right? Because it's all relative. If you turn up the low end, there's really less high end now, right? There's more low end, but there's less high. So whenever you EQ, you're actually, it's a balancing act, actually, because you can't add too much of one. If you add too much of 3 or 4K, which I'm not going to do because that'll hurt your ears. That's actually painful. Like 4K, like 3.5, 4K, that's the pain zone of EQ. Seriously, you got to be careful. That'll hurt your ears. You'll cover your ears and roll around on the floor like a schoolgirl. I'm telling you. I don't know. Was that too graphic? Was that offensive against women? I don't know. I'm sorry.
I'm not interested in that.
Anyhow, so what I'm saying to you is that those roll-offs are a really good place to start, but just listen to the intelligibility between the two voices. I mean, you're on a Heil PR40 going through a DBX 286. Your sound is really good. It's pretty good. So now your Skype guest might be on earbuds or whatever, and there might be a lot of low end in their voice, or there might be a lot of high end. Sometimes these mics people use, sometimes they come through Skype. It's actually a little painful. You got to roll off the high end. So that's kind of like you bounce, like the two voices, the host and the guest, you kind of have to balance those frequencies. Not only like you balance the overall level of the voice because you want both voices to be the same level, right? So the listener can hear it at the same level. You also want to balance frequencies in general between the two. So one is not really bassy and the other one really shrill and high frequency. So yeah, and when you apply EQ, like you said, you apply EQ to certain parts of the track. I would suggest, well, what you do when you mix a song or mix a podcast episode, I add EQ to the whole track. So if someone has too much bass in their voice, they're going to have it for the whole track. So I just add it to the whole track. I take out a little low end.
And you do that after Auphonic or before? If you use Auphonic, I guess.
See, that's a good question, my friend.
That's why I'm here. I'm a genius.
Some people are smart.
Thank you, Barry.
And scientific report from California was saying the same thing.
Yeah, so, okay, should you EQ before or after Auphonic? Here's what I would say. If it's anything major you have to do to it, like if it is someone coming through Skype and there's just way too much low end and it's not very intelligible, there's not enough high end, in that case, yes, I would actually EQ it beforehand. I would roll off some low end and maybe add some presence or some high end. And again, you don't want to do any extreme EQing. That's a beginner's mistake when you start doing extreme EQing. Just, sometimes you might have to add a lot or subtract a lot, but try not to go overboard. So yeah, if it's extreme, I would do it before Auphonic. If it sounds pretty good already, then I wouldn't worry about it. Then after Auphonic, you can make final tweaks on it. Because once you run everything separately through Auphonic and you assemble it back in your DAW in Audacity, the final listen through, you might say, oh yeah, you know what? I need to add a little more high end to the guest's voice. And then you add a little high end, and that's okay.
I think more than not, because like you said, my PR40 it sounds, usually more rich, and a little deeper than the Skype recording of the guest. I think more than not, they're like tinny, sometimes, or a lot higher rather than low. So, I mean, does that work the same?
It is exactly the same. Yeah. So you can roll off the high end, although, yeah, again, you got to be careful, but you can roll off some high end, or you can actually add some low end. So in that case, if your guest on Skype sounds very thin, then you can actually sweep the low frequencies. I would say between 150, well, let's say between 100 and 300 hertz, somewhere in there. Just make the Q really small, and just so you can pinpoint frequencies, and just find a frequency in there that sounds good and that it adds some body to the sound, right? So add some beef, some size, right? Mm-hmm. Then you can just find a good frequency, a low frequency to add, and just boost that a little bit. It'll make it sound more full. In some ways, that's better, because if there's too much low end, you have to get rid of a lot of it, and that can be tricky. But if there's slightly not enough low end, you can actually find the good frequency and boost only that one. So, yeah, definitely, that's how you should do it.
Yeah, I'm a creature of habit, so what I need to do. This has been good inspiration today to, like I said, when we're done here, just kind of hang up and pull up some things and play. I don't do that very often. I just kind of do my normal routine.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's great. And like before we started recording, before we started tweaking knobs, you're like, wait a minute, I'm going to take a picture of this where the settings are right now.
I panicked for about 4 seconds.
Yeah, because I'm like, turn this here, turn that there, twist that knob. And you're like, wait a minute. All right, so now you got the voices in Audacity, and you do your editing right there, right?
Yes. Sorry, I had a brain fart.
Okay.
Yes, I edit everything in Audacity.
Okay, now you said you're a little picky. You edit a lot. Yeah, so just tell us briefly what you normally edit out.
Well, I often tell my guests, at the beginning, especially if I don't know them well, that I don't allow myself to sound too dorky. I just won't. And so I will also give them the same kind of treatment. And so I tell them, we have a nice little chat at the beginning, and I tell them, I know you're probably a pro, depending on who it is, but anything you would like for me to cut, just tell me, or restart anything you want to restart.
Right.
Or if there's any kind of stutter, I'll try to clean it up if I can, but if you'd also like to just restart that statement, that's fine too. I take out those pauses that are just maybe a little too long. As I go through my interview, I try to get to the point where, since it's pre-recorded, there's no reason to jump to the next question, So I'll, pause and think, brainstorm before I jump into that next question. And then, you can edit some of those things out. But I do get a little picky, a lot of the mouth sounds.
Right.
I take a lot of those out, and and I bet a lot of my listeners don't pick up on that and don't care. But I don't know. I like to, I want to put a good product out there. But I also need to find a balance at some point, because, sometimes, I don't know how people who put out, 5 episodes a week do it, because I will easily spend 10, 12 hours.
Yeah.
If you count, the research and doing show notes and stuff, or even more, just on one episode. And I've got a full-time job also. So
yeah,
I do get burned out sometimes, but I struggle to find kind of a happy medium in between there.
Nice. Yeah, the way you put out 5 episodes a week is you hire an editor.
Right.
Hey, did you ever try this trick? Because I know you said some of your breaths bother you. Sometimes when you're editing, if you there is a breath that's a little loud, you can just highlight the breath and just bring the level of the breath down, like 5 or 6 dB or even 10 dB, depending. Do you ever try that?
I do that a lot.
Yeah, you do that.
I have several tricks that I try to make them sound more natural.
Right. What else?
I used to always just get rid of them, but yeah.
Well, it's hard to get rid of breaths. I mean, you just literally delete it.
Well, that, or go in and create silence, rather than delete the space.
Got it.
and sometimes it would sound kind of unnatural. So I learned that after a while.
Yeah, a lot of times that'll sound unnatural if you literally just silence the breath and then, so Joe, then you come in with the sentence. It's like, whoa. And I was earlier, breaths are normal. Like I was telling I think it was Max Flight a few episodes ago, I was telling him, go listen to music. Go listen to the pop music or any music you like. Listen to the singer. You can hear their breaths a lot. Their breaths are loud, especially pop music. Like listen to any pop music. The breaths are as loud as the words, but you don't notice it because it's natural. You hear breaths. Okay.
But sometimes I sound like I'm gulping flies, dude. Seriously.
Well, on a talk show type podcast, yeah, it's different than music. Yeah, no, that's good. I'm glad you tweak it that way. So, all right. And then you make a teaser. This is the last thing I want to cover with you. You said you make a teaser, and the teaser that you make, you put at the beginning of that individual episode, right?
I do.
Okay.
I even saw in one of the podcasting groups on Facebook, this week people asked again, do you announce the episode number at the beginning of the episode?
Right.
And I've kind of gone back and forth. But what I do at the beginning, I'll say, here's what's coming up on episode whatever of the Big Seance Podcast, and I'll say the guest's name. And then I find it really fun sometimes picking themes and music and stuff. So I have separate music that I play to go underneath, and I have a little transition, whoosh sound that I'll play in between each clip. I do sometimes think they get a little long. Sometimes they're a minute or more long, but I find it so hard to pull back. Like I'm like, no, that's important. That's so exciting. I want that to go in there. And so after I'll go through, that's one of the other, 15 times I go through my whole episode and listen to it. I will find all the parts that I think are good teaser material. And then I just have to kind of pick the best of the best and, try to find the right combination that'll get people sucked in and excited, but also kind of, if I can, take care of some of the bio part. It might be less you have to read of a bio if you can kind of put those pieces in the teaser, kind of explain to people. And, but, probably I'm sure there's some people out there that would tell me that my teasers are too long. But after the teaser, then I pull in my intro for the show. Sometimes I have solo episodes, and if I have a solo episode, I just say, hey, this is episode whatever, and then I put my intro in and I start talking. But that's not more than times than not, I've got a guest.
Cool. All right. Well, I have one last question, but before that, I just want to make sure people understand where they can find you. Patrick Keller, you're the host of and producer of the Big Seance Podcast, which I have to say, I have not listened yet, but I did subscribe. It's in my Podcast Addict app.
Yay.
So I'm there. Oh, I have two more questions. One is audio. The other one, the other one's a surprise. So, but what's the website real quick?
The website is bigseance.com.
Bigseance.com. And seance is SEANCE.
Correct.
And of course, all the links will be in the show notes. So here, all right, I'll save the audio question. Here's a question. What is, I wish I had some music or something. Anyway, what is an EVP?
Oh, EVPs are so cool and nerdy. EVP is electronic voice phenomenon, or phenomena if it's plural. And, anybody who's turned on sci-fi or any, nerdy paranormal show has probably heard of EVP, but, many people believe that these are spirit voices captured on tape, in quotes. And I did quite a bit of experimenting and research several years ago when I was just really getting into this paranormal stuff. But there's lots of researchers out there you can follow on EVP. There's lots of it's just so fun.
So it's
but
audio.
I'm also very skeptic about it.
It's audio from the other side or from ghosts or something.
It is sitting anywhere really. A lot of people think that, you know, you have to be sitting in a haunted house, you know,
Right.
to pick up EVP. It's my belief, and I don't do it as much, but it's my belief that you could just sit out a recorder, you know, right next to you, wherever you are, because, you know, I think spirits are probably everywhere. And I also don't think that necessarily they have to be sitting, chilling out with you right next to your recorder to communicate with you.
Right.
But you know, there's nothing you can prove. And I'm so, I get on a lot of my listeners' nerves because I'm like 50% skeptic on paranormal things and 50% I really, really, really want it to be paranormal.
See, that's good. I
I really
like
want to
that.
reach that communication.
I like that. That's real. That means you're torn. That means you want proof. You're searching. So does it have to be a special recorder to capture these EVPs?
Over the years, there's been different thoughts about that. And, you know, EVP has changed a lot, I would say, probably in the last 10 years, even since I've been kind of into it, as technology changes. You know, sometimes people think that the cheaper recorders that might have, you know, some internal kind of noise and mechanical noise.
Oh.
Some people think that maybe a spirit could take advantage of that noise and kind of use that to help them communicate. You know, some people probably pull out a giant condenser mic, you know,
Right.
and try to get really clean voices that way. Since I've been into the podcasting, I've never really tried that route too much, but, you know, just any recorder, you know, a lot of people nowadays just take their phones and record that way. I would say you'd have to make sure you always have, you know, airplane mode on, you know, so your phone's not doing other things.
Yeah.
But,
See,
I
the
think you
spirit
could probably
buzzed
get
me.
it anywhere. Yeah,
Yeah. Stop. Spirit's calling.
exactly. Nope. It's just a text.
So do you have an episode of your show where you play some of this audio?
I do have probably a couple of episodes with EVP. I know I have an episode that has some of my favorite EVP. I could send you that link.
Yes, please do that. I want to put that in the
yeah.
show notes so people can click it and go hear these EVPs.
Absolutely. Yeah, I don't do it as much anymore because, you know, just like, you know, editing a podcast episode for 10 to 12 hours, EVP kind of sucks up some time too. And so, you know, I've kind of, you know, that was fun. And every now and then I use it when I need to, but any kind of spirit communication tools, I just completely nerd out on.
That's interesting. And I just thought of this with my new software, the Isotope RX5 Advanced. When you open up the wave, you don't just see the wave. There's a spectral frequency graph, or I don't know what they call it, spectrograph or whatever it is. But you actually see the frequencies in different colors, and you could see almost like like if it's a noise, it'll be a line along that frequency. I wonder if I opened up some of these EVPs in there, if it would look, you know, spooky, or if it would like spell out a word or something.
Oh, shut up. Don't get me obsessed with something else now.
Dude.
I'll have to send it to you.
All right. Yeah, send it to me. Send it to me. That'd be great. All right. My other question now seems boring. I was going to ask you what, it's completely boring, but what's the next piece of gear you're going to upgrade in your whole setup?
Next piece of gear.
Or you weren't thinking about it at all?
Well, the thing that's been on my mind for a while is figuring out how to get the Zoom H5,
Okay.
you know, hooked up to my mixer. That's been my main goal. And, you know, every now and then I buy a new mic for fun, you know, like an ATR or something, but I haven't really thought of any gear.
That's
yet.
good. So you got to get what you have, get it optimized. That's perfect. That's awesome. All right, and I want to hear back from you in a month or two or whenever to see how, you know, if you did that, or just send me a note if you do figure it out. Send me a note, and then I can share it with the listeners and all that.
I will. And seriously, I can't believe, you know, how you helped me and fix this all up in like 5 minutes. So now I'm excited to, you know, get off of here and play and hear the difference and see if I can really get that going. You rock, man.
That's awesome. Thank you. Patrick Keller, host and producer of the Big Seance Podcast. This is a great episode, man. I really appreciate what you're doing. You're doing great. Keep learning. Keep improving. And I like what you have already, and you can just make it even better. So thank you for listening. I know you got a lot out of this. Every week, this is what we bring you. Let this information seep into your brain and make you faster and better in your production. All right? So we'll see you next time. Until then, sound great.
Sound great.
Yes. Woo.
You walk away from me when